Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2 U's of 2 U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Marsha. You have a quiet house today?
I do. If people follow me on Instagram, they know I got a new roof. It was very loud. It took 4 days.
Yeah, that was pretty quick. It was pretty quick. I was surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the house, and then I have a 3-car garage, so they put a new roof on that as well. And that was easier because it's flat. I have pretty steep slopes on my angles on my house. So they said it's been a long time since they've had to do a roof with such steep. It was so steep. But anyway, it looks great. I'm very happy. I didn't have any leaks, but I have it cleaned every year and the gutters cleaned every year. And they said that I had about another year. So it was time.
Yeah.
But grateful that it wasn't like I was forced to do it because I had,
right.
in a panic situation. So
yeah.
Great roofing company. If people are in the Seattle area, I would recommend them. But
who did you use? I mean, do you want to say who you used?
It's a company called Synergy Roofing.
Oh, okay.
Or I think it's Synergy Roof Services or something like that. But anyway, the guy, the owner, he just has the one crew that he runs. So it's not like he has multiple crews all over the city doing things. So very on top of it. They did a great job, really clean up when they're done, and they protect everything before they start. And I was impressed with how well they did. But I have a new car on top of my house.
Well, that's
pretty nice new car on top of my house.
How it goes. Well, I know you've been kind of worried about it ever since you moved back into that house.
I've been worried about a lot of things
in 2019. So you've been chipping away at that list, and now this one's done, and so that's really good. So
because I did the windows were in May. Well, I've been doing stuff, plumbing and whatnot, but the windows were done in May because they actually were leaking, and so I had new windows, now the roof, and then the painter's going to be coming as soon as they finish their job they're on now. They're going to come to my house and paint the exterior of the house and paint the interior of the garage.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Which will make it much lighter out there. And I'm in purge mode. I have about 15 bags of things to go to the Goodwill. And I always think I'm always purging. Remember we had this conversation? I'm always purging. And, we were watching those decluttering shows. We had a long conversation about all of that. But what I really got from that thing is it never stops because you always have stuff coming in, right?
Yeah.
And then also because this is the house I grew up in, and I had to move in. There was already stuff in here from 60 years. So purging, I've gotten rid of a lot of that stuff. So it's my furniture now pretty much. I think the only thing I really have of my parents and the main floor, I think, is the dining room table, I think. And a couple of chairs. I think otherwise I've gotten rid of a lot of this stuff. But I think too is like you're not really quite ready. So some of I think what we talked about last episode is things I wasn't ready to get rid of. I'm not ready to get rid of. And it also includes the garage. There's a lot of things out there that had been saved over the years that we were going to use, and we're not using it. So it's, it's going. And so I think it'll be really nice having that fresh paint inside there. But I'm a little stressed because it's just me. My brother is out of town, and he comes home for a short period of time, and then he's back out of town again. So I'm going to have to find someone to help me get the garage cleared out of the heavy things.
Right.
The little light weight things I can move, but the really heavy things I can't do. So, but I'll work it out. I'll figure it out. But I have to say, though, about these projects, it really is about just chipping away at the list, because I got the new windows a year ago. The windows, they were able to put all the moldings back and all the windows, except there's 2 windows on either side of the fireplace, and they're a little slightly wider than the old ones by about 1.5 inches. So I had to go to the architectural salvage to find the mahogany molding to go on the top, and also the mahogany molding to go underneath the sill. And it took me a year to find somebody to finally get someone in to put the molding up, because it's very simple, but I don't.
Right.
It's more fine than I can do. So I've found somebody to put it up, and they put it up, put the piece at the top, great. And I brought in the molding that goes underneath the sill. I don't know what that piece is called. I brought it in, and it was so stupid, but I gave him the old pieces to put up, even though that are too short.
Oh, no.
Yes. So he did it right. He did it right, because it's what I gave him, even though I brought in from the house the piece that goes on the bottom that need to be cut to size. I don't know what I was thinking. I know what I was thinking. I was not thinking. I was just not thinking. And so he put those, because they're not, anyway, the thing is, I think most people will walk in there and go, they're fine, but they're too short now. So the architectural order is off. And my brother was out of town, and I sent him a picture, and he knew immediately that they were wrong. But I'm like, oh my gosh, because they're too short. Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. You know that? Yeah. So I thought, okay, it's 2 cuts I need to make. I will just make those 2 cuts. Finally, Ben made the 2 cuts for me, or was going to make the 2 cuts for me. And then he said, but the board that I got is not long enough. It's about 3 inches too short. So he can only get 1 piece out of it. So it means now I have to go back to the architectural salvage place and look for another piece of mahogany molding.
I would say just live with it. I just stop seeing it and live with it.
I know. So put a plant in front of them, or a chair in front of them. But I thought it really is about chipping away at the list. Yeah, it's like it just never is done. Like it's like anyway, ridiculous. But it is true. Once you see it, you can't really unsee it. So I have to do something about my brain around that, or like I say, just put the chair back and put curtains up so you don't even see the molding. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
after a while, you won't see it, I think. I mean, think about well, of course, this isn't something that I did to the house. It's something that came with the house. But think about the ceiling in my kitchen, right? That is like a swirling sky is what it was painted.
It's like clouds or something. Yeah.
Clouds and sky on my kitchen ceiling. And when we first moved in, I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And also the painted floor. But that's a little harder to fix. But this ceiling, like, I don't even know it's there anymore. And one time my mom said, I don't know why they aren't getting rid of, why they haven't repainted that ceiling. Like, it would be a 1-day project, right? I mean, slap some paint up there, really. And when Robert's gone, so he doesn't have to be picky about it.
Robert's gone?
I could hear him in the background.
Yes. I don't know if our listeners will probably be able to hear that. He snuck in and is listening to me on the podcast.
So I have a joke.
Oh, okay. Robert has a joke. You have to come
Okay.
over to the microphone if you're going to tell a joke.
This is my non-AI joke.
Okay.
So, So a skull, a rabbit, and a chicken walk into a bar, and they saddle up to the bar, and the bartender asks them, what brings you 3 disparate characters in to the bar? And the skull says, well, I've been looking at your drink menu, and it's pretty inexpensive, and I don't have a lot of bones. And the rabbit chimes in real quickly. Well, I've just been bar hopping. And then the chicken sarcastically tells the bartender, well, it's obvious. The sign outside on your establishment says, to get to the other side.
But I'm bum. Thank you, Robert. Oh my gosh. A little interlude. I didn't know he was there standing at the door when I was talking.
It's so funny.
But anyway, you don't see things after a while. I don't notice the kitchen, like I've lived with that kitchen ceiling for, I think it's going on 19 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it'll get done. But
well, I have the carpet on the stairs the bottom step has a hole in it from the cat.
Yeah.
That shredded a hole in the carpet, and I don't really see that anymore.
Right.
I mean, I know it's there, but yeah. Anyway, but I have to say, even though I was not up there on the roof myself, I'm exhausted. I'm really exhausted, and and something else happened, which we'll talk about later when we get to the projects. But I think it was all quite just too debilitating for me, the whole thing. So I basically went to bed yesterday. I just felt terrible.
To recover.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with the roof is it was a little stressful getting it started. And again, I had to say to myself, this is not my thing. It's for them to figure out, but are they going to be able to get the dumpster in the back in the driveway? Because that's really where they wanted, because they could just bring all that debris across the garage, because the garage is attached to the house, so they could just bring it all the way across that way. Otherwise, if it went in front, they had to hand carry it all down the stairs.
Right.
And I have a big flight of stairs, and so it just been so much harder. So they were really grateful that they could get it in the back driveway. But I had it, and I was getting stressed about it, but it's like, that's not my problem.
Right.
I mean, they have to figure it out. Right. And there's all these things, and
there's all kinds of limitations to putting on roofs in an urban neighborhood in a city of hills. I mean, basically that's, that's what they're dealing with if they take a job in Seattle. So yeah, I'm sure they know what to do.
And also there's a construction project now going on a few doors down from me. They're building one of these dadoos, as everybody's building in Seattle, and which, if people who are not in Seattle, that's short for a detached auxiliary dwelling unit. So a lot of people, their back gardens, if they have a large area, they just are putting another house back there. And so there's another one started at in my alley. So they're blocking the alley constantly. And then now the house across the street in their backyard, they're putting a dadu in, and they have 2 dumpsters illegally. Because on one side of my street there's no parking, and there's 2 of them now sitting in front of the no parking sign. So the garbage truck can't get through. But I reported it to the city because I'm concerned an emergency vehicle couldn't get through.
Yeah,
and I needed an emergency vehicle not too long ago.
That's true. You did. That's right.
I don't know. Anyway. But it was just, and I think also just that noise, the tear off was very unsettling. The dog was unsettled, couldn't find anywhere to lay down.
I saw pictures of you had a video of your light swinging.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all the clocks in the house were chiming. And all the chandelier in my room, there's I have a crystal chandelier in the dining room. That's like the prisms are hitting each other. I mean, it was like an earthquake all day long.
Right.
And I actually did call my brother, like, how secure is that chandelier in the dining room? I mean, it's been hanging there for a long time.
Yeah.
45 years. But it was very, 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 it was hard. Yeah. It was a hard project. So
But it's done now.
It's done,
And
yes.
it's time for paint,
Yes.
which will be
As
nice.
I say, chipping away at the list.
Yeah.
Well, should we talk about,
Yeah.
more fun things?
Yeah. Would you?
I'm going to have you do your projects first, I think,
Okay.
before I get to my projects.
Okay. Yes. So I finished the socks that I've been working on. I was calling them the wine and cheese socks because they were kind of a burgundy and gold color. They're finished. They're in my drawer. All the ends are woven in and everything. I haven't worn them yet. I don't know why I haven't worn them yet, now that I think about it. I've been wearing short socks, not because it's really been hot here, but I just haven't grabbed a pair of socks out of the drawer, out of that particular drawer. I finished 2 more of the mother bears. I have a total of 5. And then the 6th one just needs his ears and to be sewn up. So I've been doing that. They're crocheted. I'm using the crochet in the round pattern from Mother Bear. And I had some acrylic that I had saved from those reindeer ornaments that I made. Remember that I complained so much about? I finished them up for my mom, and I saved the 3. There were 3 skeins of acrylic that I had saved from that project because they used very little of the yarn, and it was a pretty nice acrylic. And I was saving it because I was thinking it would be good for hats. Because sometimes for a charity hat, you don't want to make one that's gonna, that's not washable. So I was saving that, thinking I would use it, but I grabbed it out and I've been using it to make the bears, like their heads, and I don't know why, this is kind of dumb, but I like to make their hands and their face the same color, right? Like it's their bear. Yeah. That's the bear, as opposed to the shoes or the pants or the shirt. And because I'm making bears out of scraps, I often have enough to make the hands, but not enough to make the head.
Oh, right.
Or to make the whole head. I have one bear that I made it look like she has a hat on because I had to use something else because I ran out of the yarn for the head. So I used a really colorful one and then added a bow to make it look like she had on a hat or a turban or whatever. But anyway, I still made her ears, but anyway, it's silly because they're just bears, but I like them to have the same yarn. So I've been using that brown acrylic for the bears, and it's been kind of nice to not have to figure out how to piece together hands and head that I like. So working on that. I also have been working on the blanket. I want to get that blanket done, the one that I'm making out of the woven squares. I want to get that done by the end of summer. And if I want to do that, I have to do a little bit more than 1 strip a week. So I added a strip to it, and then I maybe got about half of the next strip. So I have 8.5. I think I have 8.5 strips on the blanket now. Okay. The problem I'm running into, another one of these strange issues, you can sew the strips together with a different color of yarn. And you know what? Maybe if I did that all the way across, the problem is then you can't hide. It's very hard to hide the tail, weave in the tail if it's a different color from the strip. And I left long tails on every strip or on every square so that I would have something to use to sew them together. But the tails aren't always on the right side where I'm sewing. And so what I'll do is I'll put the strip together, and then I'll use all the tails that I have to sew strips together. And then I'll have a few squares that are not sewn because I didn't have any of that kind of yarn. So now I'm going back through the other strips, and I'm looking for where I have really long tails and I'm cutting off a little bit of that in that right color so that it makes it easier to weave in the ends. Like, okay, this is making it way more complicated than it needs to be. And you really, I mean, you can sort of bury the ends in the seam, but the seam is already thicker. Or not this, well, it's not like there's a seam allowance because I'm using mattress stitch, but that little place where you're butting the two things together is a little stiffer than the rest of the blanket. And so then if you bury your end in that section, you make it even stiffer. I don't know. At a certain point, I may get really sick of having to figure out how to sew these things together because I've literally used up all the yarn, right, that I used up all the yarn that I didn't think to save little scraps for sewing it together because I had left tails to sew it together, but they're not always in the right place. Anyway, I have been working on it and I'm going to continue, hopefully get it done this summer. That's my goal.
I have a thought, and could you sew it together with just sewing thread? Not the strips together with sewing thread, and then it would be much lighter weight as you.
I probably could have done that if I started that way.
Oh, but yeah, that's right. You started that way.
I've got about 8 together. I'm not sure I could do that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have maybe been a better idea. Anyway,
I was I never have done that. I've on knitwear or blankets or any knitting that I use sewing thread. But anyway,
no, but that probably would have. It probably would have worked, or even some of my. I could have even used like a thin. I have a thinner wool even yarn for like on a weaving cone. That could have worked too. I mean, it's not bad. It's not like the seam is bad, but yeah, I just. I don't know. I like to be able to bury the end in the square, and you can't do that if it's the wrong color. So, anyway, but it's moving along. It's just I have to think a little bit more about it. It's not mindless. And if I would have been thinking, I could have sewn from one side of the strip all the way across to the other side of the strip. Really, because mattress stitch is invisible. And instead, I'm matching them square for square and sewing with the yarn that's left over for a particular square. So, and there are lots of places as I'm going along where I'm going to have 2 ends and I can get rid of one of them and use it to sew a different square. But it's fiddly. And so the mother bears were fiddly because I was trying to figure out how to get enough yarn to do a particular thing, all the same color. And then the blanket's fiddly because of the squares. So, but I think I'm done with bears for a little while once I finish the one I have going. And then I'm going to concentrate on the blanket because I really don't have an active knitting project right now. So yeah, that'll give me a chance to work on those squares.
Yeah.
And then I have a carding project for my summer spin in. I've been working on carding the fleece, what Judith called a perfect fleece. Jazzman. Soft. He's a really soft fleece and the color is light gray. There's some darker brown in there, but most of this batch of the fleece was from the light gray. And I've been carding it. I'm almost done. So I'll talk a little bit about my carding technique in here, just for summer spin-in content. A lot of you already know how to do carding or how to prepare fleece to spin, but I'll just let you know what I do. What I used to do was just kind of take the fleece and kind of pull it apart a little bit and just put it in, or not even pull it apart, just put it into the carder. I have a drum carder that has a hand crank, and that worked okay, but I find I get a better product if I pick first. So what I'll do is I'll stand outside and I'll, take from the box and I'll separate the locks out. And the nice thing about that is that I can find like second cuts and pull them out, or places where I grab the fleece and it's a little shorter than average or a lot shorter than average. Like, oh, okay, I don't want this in my final product. This should have been skirted. So I can find things that should have been skirted off that I didn't skirt. And so then I, separate the locks. And so I get a whole box full of these separated locks and nice fluffy fleece. And then I start feeding it into the drum carder. And I have learned over the years that I get a much better product if I'm more patient and don't try to put in a lot of fleece all at once, little bits at a time. And I just kind of keep cranking, keep cranking steadily and then grabbing something and putting it in and crank steadily. And so, it's a lot like if it were an automatic one, an electric carder, because it just keeps turning, but I'm just turning it. And it's not hard to turn because, I'm just putting in a little bit at a time. I'll transfer, a box of washed fleece into a box of picked fleece, and then the box of picked fleece goes through the carder, and then that goes in a box of bats. And then once I have that batch of bats, and I have done all that, I've carded it all once through. And then once I have that batch of bats, I put it through a second time. And sometimes a third time, depending on how much blending I want of colors. But this one, I think the second time is fine. And I'm getting a really nice, smooth, puffy, nice bat from just 2 passes through the carder. So that's what I do. But you can also use hand cards, and that goes pretty quickly actually. If you do it like you do knitting, you just pick it up in the evening and you do a little bit. It's less of a production to do it, so you can get more done. Does that make sense? You can get more done each day because it's just right there and you do a little each day. Whereas when I use the drum carder, I don't necessarily, that's like I get out the drum carder, I get out the boxes, I set it all up. And, so I get more done at one time with the drum carder. Yeah. But you can get more done every day if you use hand cards. And then with my last project, the Corriedale border Leicester fleece that I was spinning, the white one I'm using for a rug yarn. On that one, I had carded bats, which had been through the drum carder twice. And in that case, I was very careful to make sure all those locks went in the exact same direction because it was long wool. And so I had some that was just bats. I found that much more difficult to spin than the fiber that I had either combed or pulled off the drum carder through a diz. And I think I talked about that a little bit last time. But I spun both of those and noticed the difference in the spinning. In fact, my skein from the combed roving and the hand pulled off the drum carder roving is actually smaller. I couldn't spin it as thick because it was thinner from coming through the comb. Coming through the diz, the roving was already thinner. But it spun up so much nicer, not as not as many tangles. But then I have to say, I was gonna take pictures of it to see the comparison between the two skeins, but I washed that skein of the combed wool just a little too vigorously, and so I had to reskein it and pull it apart because some of the strands had kind of felted together. And then, of course, that pulls the fibers out right? And they're not
Yeah.
smooth anymore.
Yeah.
So, but it was a smoother skein to begin with. That from the pulling it off the carder through a diz or using the comb. And I have to say, I couldn't tell the difference between the combed fiber and the fiber that I pulled off the drum carder with the diz. So I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else could have.
When you were done with the 2 skeins? Or?
When I was spinning.
Oh, when you were spinning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I spun the bats, I could tell the difference between the bats and the roving. But when I was spinning the roving, I couldn't tell the difference between the roving I had pulled off the drum carder and the roving I had pulled off the combs.
Okay.
And partly because when I drum card a longer wool like that, I am really careful to put it all through lengthwise, right? So it's all in line. Yeah. And then pulling it through the diz puts it more in line. And that's what the combs do too, is it puts it more in line. And maybe someone else with a better combing technique than mine, because I haven't done a lot of combing. Maybe their combing is even better. I really couldn't tell the difference as I was spinning it. So anyway, that's a little bit of information about carding or fleece prep, and what I've been doing with this fleece. And I'm trying to really do a good job of preparation on this fleece because it's probably the nicest fleece I've ever bought. I know it's one of the most expensive fleeces I've ever bought.
Yeah.
It's one of those impulse buys. I remember very clearly. It was late afternoon. The judging had finished kind of early. We hadn't been there. We had gone in once before to the sale, the fleece sale at Black Sheep. And then it was late in the afternoon and we were like, oh, let's just go through one more time. And that fleece was still there. And I took a picture of the little Post-it note that they had put on the fleece that says, Judith says this is a perfect fleece, but too fine for this class or something. Anyway, you and I both, we looked at it and like, oh, wow, this is still here. Nobody took it. Nobody's bought this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy it. So, and it's CVM, which I like spinning. Merino and Columbia is his background. And the CVM and the Columbia fleeces that I've spun, I've really, really liked. So anyway, and what's not to like about Merino?
Yeah. I'm looking at your picture of it. The color's pretty.
Yeah, it's and I don't have a good picture of the full fleece. I know I've taken pictures of that fleece spread out on my driveway, and I looked for one to put in in my project page, but I couldn't find it. So anyway, and then my last project. So we were talking about sweaters and sweater storage, and you had talked to me about where do I put my sweaters and about moths. And I said, I just, as long as you don't leave stuff sitting for too long in the same place. And so I thought, you know what? Speaking of that, I should probably dump out all my baskets. So I dumped out all my baskets. My sunroom looks like a yarn explosion. And so I dumped out all the baskets. And while I was doing that, I saw the yarn that we had dyed a long time ago, maybe even before the podcast. I can't remember. And I had helped to clean out the weaving room at school when they were getting rid of that. They were remodeling that building to do something else in it, and we hadn't had a weaving class for a really long time, and they were getting rid of a bunch of stuff. So I had gone to help clean it out, and I had brought home a variety of coned yarns, and so we had skeined this up. I'm like, okay, I feel like I want to do something with this. So I grabbed that yarn and went down to the studio, where my weaving loom is, and all my weaving yarn off the living room. I thought, what can I put with this? And I didn't even really know how much yardage was there. I think we counted yardage when when we first wound
Yeah.
it. I don't know why there wasn't labels on this, but there wasn't any labels. Probably because we thought we would surely remember.
Yeah. Well, that's how we did things then.
Yeah. Well, it's how I still do things occasionally.
Yeah.
To be real. So anyway, I didn't know how much there was, but I had it sitting on the table and I thought, okay, what color am I going to put with this? Thinking that I was just going to find one color to go with it, to go with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got out a bunch of colors that I thought might go, and I sat them all there, and all of a sudden is like, this is like a rainbow. I'm going to make pride dish towels.
Ah.
So I planned a little warp, decided how I was going to arrange the colors, and planned a little warp. And then my stripes were 48 ends wide, 36 ends wide. So the variegated yarn that we dyed, I didn't have as much of it. So it's 3, I think.
Mm-hmm.
3 stripes. Yes. 3 stripes that are 36 ends wide, which will be about 3 inches.
Okay.
And then I have 4 other colors, red, orange, green, and blue, that are 4-inch wide stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So that made a total of 25 inches, which my loom is only 24 inches. So so the stripes are a little thinner than 4 and 3, but essentially that's what it is. And so I did that, and I thought, okay, well, 36 and 48 are both divisible by 12. So I went looking through my Marguerite Porter Davison book for a threading that has a 12-thread repeat, or a 6-thread repeat, or a 4-thread repeat. 12 is good, a good number because it's divisible by a lot of things.
Yeah.
And what I found was a 12-thread repeat. I found a few of them, and I was debating back and forth. But anyway, I decided to use a German bird's eye from the Marguerite Porter Davison book. It's a 12-thread repeat. So I've got it all threaded. I finished threading it last night. So I've got it all threaded, and now it's on the table loom. And now I just need to tie onto the back, and then I am going to wind the warp, and I'll be ready to start weaving. Yeah. And the nice thing about that threading is I have a lot of choices for how I treadle, and I can get different designs. I'm not sure. The design will show up in the wider stripes, the solid color stripes. So that might be kind of fun. And then the other thing is that I can use different. I have 5. I have enough yarn for 5 towels, or maybe I'll do 4 towels and make them longer.
The colors are really pretty. I'm looking at your
it turned out really good.
They're really nice.
And I think in the past I had been kind of hesitant to use this for a dish towel, because this yarn actually it's cotton, but it's plied with something that's not cotton.
Yes, yeah.
It has a
and that stayed white. Because when we dyed it, the non-cotton stayed white.
Yeah, and
it's pretty.
Yeah, it really is. They came out really nicely. And the other thing that I didn't realize, and this kind of went into my planning, was when I wound it off into cakes, I realized, we wound it double. So it's 2 threads. It was wound in the skein, with 2 threads together. And I think maybe that was because it was so thin.
Oh.
And maybe we thought it would make a better yarn to knit with if it was a little thicker. So instead of being lace weight, it's more it's more like fingering weight. Anyway, I don't know what we were thinking. It was a long time ago.
Whatever it was, we thought it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah. So every end in my weaving is actually 2 threads, and I did that for both the the variegated yarn, which was already wound that way, and then I wound solid yarns that way too. So there'll be a little thicker towels than I normally make. I have one set of dish towels that are thicker, that are double threads like this, and I really like them. You maybe don't remember. There's the plaid ones, the thin plaid ones, but then there's all that are brown with like red stripe. The main colors they're brown, and then natural cotton, and then they have a red stripe is the main biggest stripe color. But then I also have the ones that are brown on brown, the ones that Aunt Betty was making at one point, and then I finished up. So I think they'll come out more like that in terms of thickness, which will be nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I like the fact that you have, looking at your photograph, some of the colors are solid and some are this yarn that we dyed or with the white, so that it looks sort of barber pole kind of the stuff that we dyed. So I like that contrast between the solid and then the, I don't want to say variegated, but the barber pole kind of, it looks nice together, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased with the way they look. Yeah, that the part that didn't dye, that didn't take the dye, does give it kind of a barber pole-y effect. So, and it looks really pretty all threaded through. I always like how it looks when it's all threaded through threaded through the reed and then threaded through the heddles. So I don't have the most recent picture up from last night. I think I sent you a picture last night when I was threading things. But anyway, so I'm happy with them, and I'm going to get to actually start the throwing the shuttle. Maybe today, but it's nice outside. So maybe not today, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Or this evening.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that it stays light later, the wind picks up and but I can still get some weaving done because it'll be light, very late. So, So anyway, that's the extent of my projects. I have a lot of things going.
You do have a lot of things going. It's like, I
had startitis.
Some fun projects. Well, so that's everything I see on the list that you have. Okay, well, I'll talk about my projects. So, I finished the cardigan, the baby cardigan.
Oh,
it's called Sweet Baby Cardigan by Alena Byers. I'm calling it finished. It's not really technically finished this because I need to get buttons. And I've just not had, because I couldn't leave my house for a while. And I did take it with me. I did a little Thursday. I thought I need to get out of the house. So I did a little road trip, but I didn't get any buttons on the trip. So I will hopefully this weekend. I'm thinking maybe this is Saturday, maybe tomorrow, Sunday, I'll go to the yarn shop and get 4 buttons for it. But anyway, it's done. I think it's very cute. And this morning I photographed it and put it up in Ravelry. And then I went to look at the other projects, and I think there's only 6 other projects. And Callie, it's interesting to look at it. Nobody's made it the way the pattern is. I'm the only one of the 6 projects that made it with the color work. They've just put stripes in. Oh,
I'm looking now too. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that interesting?
Why wouldn't you? That is cute color work and super easy.
Super easy, yeah. So yeah, I was like, and one day didn't even put any, it's just all gray. I don't think they put any stripes in it at all, right?
Well, I'm noticing that 4 of the projects are the same person.
Oh.
So no collar. One has a collar, and all of them are striped. Just regular striped. Wow. Yeah, so there's only 3 people who have made this pattern.
Oh. Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yours is the cutest.
Anyway, I think it's very cute what they've done. Pardon?
Yours is the cutest.
I do think it's really cute. The ones that they've just put the stripes in at the very bottom is pretty cute too.
But I like the design in your stripes.
So I'm calling it done. because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm done with that. I did it. My first baby sweater.
It turned out really cute.
Besides, yeah, I think it's very cute. And it's kind of, so I made it's interesting about sizing because it's been so long since I've seen a baby, or held a baby. I made the size for a 6-month-old. It seems pretty big, but I don't know what a baby, and I know this baby, George, was small when he was born. I saw his grandmother, I think 2 weeks ago, and she said he was 7 pounds. He was 4.5 when he was born. So he's 2 months old, I think now. Is that right? And he's about 7 pounds. Still very small. So I think this will be plenty big for him. And then my socks, nothing's changed on the socks. I finished the first sock. And I've cast on the second sock, but I have not been knitting.
Yes.
And I've lost my mojo.
I understand.
I'm completely heartbroken. In fact, I called you, Kelly, at 9:30 at night, which I know is way too late to call you, but I also know that I'm one of the people on your list that can get through at night.
Yes.
In an emergency. So I have to say, I'm going to preface this by saying it kind of, I realize what I'm about to say is there's people who've really experienced loss on a daily basis, and everything that's going on in the world, this is small potatoes. But my Mountain High combo spin sweater, I finished it, and I went to wash and block it, and I felted it. And it is in the garbage.
Yeah.
It's not really in the garbage, but it's going to the garbage. I am heartbroken. It's actually, and I think that's also leading to why I spent yesterday in bed. This happened on Wednesday, and I called you Wednesday night, and then I decided I needed to there's another part of the reason why I thought I need to get out of the house and not think about that. I can't go look at that sweater. So it's down in the basement. And I left to try not to think about it. Yeah. And before I got in the car, I took I have about 2 skeins left over of that yarn. And I just took all of that in my gauge swatch, and I just put it down in one of my handspun bin, and just to get it out of sight.
Yeah.
And I haven't even gone in the basement since Wednesday where the sweater is. I know it's kind of silly.
No.
It's just a sweater, but I was trying to think what is like. There isn't anything. You said like a wood carver. You carve something out of a unique piece of wood and then it's destroyed, or like a vintage car, you completely restore it and then it's destroyed. You made a comment to me that, I touched the fiber to break it apart and mix it all up. Then I touched every inch of the singles, every inch of the 3-ply, and every inch as I knit it. Yeah. And and I can't get those braids anymore. A lot of the companies are gone out of business. Even if you never be this,
right, it was a combo spin.
It was a combo spin. It'll never be the same. I thought that yarn was so beautiful. It was was greens, and it had silk in it, and so it kind of shimmered. It was absolutely gorgeous. I still have 2 skeins, but I can't even look at them. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking, I thought too, it's sort of like if I was a painter. Well, so someone said, well, you can make another sweater, but I can't make another sweater because it's not like it was, Cascade 220.
Right.
You can just go buy more Cascade.
You can't make that sweater again.
Yarn.
You can make another sweater, but you can never make that sweater again. Yeah.
I can make that pattern, but I can never make that yarn again. And I thought it's sort of like a painter that you paint a painting, but you could paint another painting. But what if you actually grew the cotton or linen, wove the fabric to make the canvas,
Right.
grew the tree and cut it down and milled it to make the frame to stretch the canvas on. Then you ground the pigments for the paint that came from something special, some special land in some place. I don't know. I mean, it's like I really am heartbroken, and I've completely lost my mojo. I was looking back, Kelly, and I think I'm going to say something else too, and I have to figure out how to get beyond this, because I have to get back to my projects. My last successful sweater was Snowflower. That was last October. But the sweater between Snowflower and this sweater that I just destroyed was the Fine Sand, which I don't like. I'm going to frog it. And then, so then going back, then there was Snowflower. That was good. Ben's, then the sweater before Snowflower was Ben's sweater, the handspun, and I knit that 3 times.
I was thinking about that, and not that this makes what happened to you any easier, but for listeners, we were talking about Marsha you were spinning it out, right? You had washed it, and you were spinning out the water in your machine.
Which is how I do all of them.
Which you have done before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do that with Ben's sweater?
I don't remember. Probably.
Because it was because we were trying to figure out why this one felted in that spinning process and the other ones didn't. Anyway, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what if it had been Ben's sweater
really?
After you knit it 3 times? With that, I'm not sure if that would have been worse or better or the same, because it wasn't yours. It wasn't for you, or the same. I don't know. The whole thing is just tragic, right? And I think, okay, yes, are there more tragic things in the world? Definitely, there are more tragic things in the world, but that doesn't mean you can't feel grief because someone else's grief is bigger, right? Or different. It's not like you can't be sad because other people have more sadness, right? I mean, okay, maybe it makes you feel better to think, okay, get a grip. I have, this is a small thing compared to what other people are going through. And that might be a way to help cope. But really, it's not small to you, right? It's, yeah.
No, and I have to say, the other thing that's been really difficult is you understand.
Yes.
But nobody else understands. Nobody gets it. And
3,000 people listening to this podcast understand.
Yeah. And I take, and I have to say I take comfort in that.
Yeah.
That out there are people who understand. But in my immediate circle, no one understands.
Right.
And I tell them, and then they move on to the next, they move on to what they want to talk about.
Right.
But that's human nature. But anyway, I am really debilitated, and I can't think about what I want to start. I kind of thought this morning, because I knew we were recording, I was getting set up, and I thought, oh, maybe I should just knit an emotional support chicken.
You need some more emotional support.
Well, because do you remember when we were at Knockers and I took this because my 2 chickens are very sort of, not really, but more naturalistic. They're not like crazy wild colors. And so I want to do a crazy wild colored one. That was my thought. And I got a bunch of yarn from the D-stash room, and I thought maybe I should just knit a chicken. Because I think I need something to get myself back on track.
Yeah. And
I've just had a lot of problems, like that alpaca shawl that I wove. I had a lot of problems with that. I've just had some problems, and I just need something to get myself back on track, and I don't know what that is. And I don't know if I've talked about this or not in the podcast, but I'm in July, I'm gone for 2 weeks on a Alaska cruise, and I wanted I was hoping to bring something with me to knit on a sweater of something, and I don't even have I can't even think about that.
Yeah.
I think maybe I should just knit this chicken, something fun. I also think this project, handspun in, okay, this is just a tragedy, but I was thinking of the other sweaters I've done. A lot of it is, so the fine sand, I thought it would be drapey enough and not so springy because it had so much alpaca in it, but it's too springy. And so it doesn't lay right. I don't think it's the wrong yarn for that project. And then prior to that, I'm doing something where it's not the exact yarn for the pattern, trying to modify it in some way. And I think handspun, like the pattern was turning out right. I mean, it fit great, except I destroyed it. My brother's sweater, it's really the wrong yarn for the pattern he wanted and the fit he wanted. And so that's just stalled. I think I just need to do something, the right weight yarn for the right sweater. Yeah. If it's a wool sweater, I use wool. If it's a cotton sweater, I use cotton. I mean, I just have to just get back to basics.
Yes.
And I have a bunch of, Lord knows, I have a bunch of basic yarn down there in the basement that I can, I have to figure out something to get back on track because I really am heartbroken and I've just completely lost. I can feel myself getting emotional just talking about it now. Mm-hmm. I have completely lost any desire to do any knitting or fiber thing.
Well, I think about your happiness sweater and the fact that yarn was for that pattern.
Right.
And it went so smoothly. Mm-hmm. Right. And then my bears, like I got myself into I was not even making bears for a while because I had gotten myself into the point where it wasn't fun because all I had were these scraps that either they weren't the right weight and I had to figure out something to double with it, or they weren't, it wasn't enough to do the whole pants or enough to do the whole shirt. And like, okay, it's a bear. I could have just scrapped it together. Right. But I was making my life difficult by doing that. And I think sometimes you do. There are some times in your life where you need something that you don't need to plan. You don't need to modify. I think maybe, you get to a point with your skill that you can do that, right? You can make it work. You can figure out what to do with this yarn that's not quite right and this pattern. And so you do it and a lot of times it works, but then it's not as easy and it's not as pleasurable all the time if you're doing that all the time. I mean, that can kind of, sometimes you just want the pleasure of taking the yarn that matches the pattern, like you said, doing something basic where it's predictable, right? Mm-hmm. And I get that. I understand that feeling. I've had that feeling. Yeah. I mean, even my second chicken where I was doing I was using fingering weight yarn. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to make the tail 3 different colors. Like, why did I do that? Like, it just made it hard. I could have made the tail all one color. Why did I have to switch colors? And like, I don't know why I do some of the stuff that I do. Like, get a basic yarn, make a basic project, I think there's something really to be said for that.
Because we are who we are, honestly, like the thing too, Kelly, is, can you follow a recipe?
No.
No, you always have to like, oh, well, I'll just, they're suggestions and guidelines, right?
Yeah.
Recipes. Now, some recipes you actually do have to follow, especially like in baking.
That's why I don't do baking. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it like, I I think the thing that I feel debilitated about, well, a bunch of things, but one of the things is I think of myself as a pretty skilled knitter.
Oh yeah.
This is a really dumb, super dumb thing I did. And it's all on me.
But
So dumb.
It's so mysterious in some ways too, though. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't think you should call it dumb. It's you had done it before, and it had been fine. Yeah. And I mean, we had a whole discussion about it that night. We couldn't figure out why this time. It didn't work. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the fiber content either, because I don't remember. There's a bunch of, because it's a compost.
But Ben's was Merino.
Yeah.
So it's like.
I really have no idea what I did.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's why I feel a bit knocked back.
Yeah.
Is I think of myself as being a pretty skilled knitter. And and you know the thing, we always laugh about how if you say, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
If you have to say that, don't do it. Right.
Yeah.
Not once did I think to myself, I think it'll be okay.
Right.
Not once. I've done this tons of times. Yeah. So I'm mystified, and I think I feel really, it's part of my feeling of, I feel this tremendous loss, but I also feel like a bit knocked back that I'm not as skilled as I think I am, I thought it was pretty good, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll see when we check in 2 weeks how I'm doing, if I'm back on the horse,
back on track. Well, there is nothing wrong with, going back to just doing something different for a while. Knit a chicken, knit another baby sweater.
And it's our spin in too. So I was thinking what I really would, I can't even say what I would really like to do, because I don't want to, right now, I don't feel like I like doing anything. But I was thinking it might help just to go spin.
Yeah.
It's very meditative, and also start carding like we talk about this all the time. I actually put it in here. I have it the right way, but the Merino, the Cormo Merino Wensleydale cross, the one that you were talking about that just now that you have finished. I have that one that I'm in the process of carding, and I should just get back to carding that.
Carding is meditative too, I think. I find it to be, yeah.
Yeah. And now the weather's nice, so I may it might be really helpful just to bring the carder outside, stand on the deck and card. And
you'll get back. You'll get back, but I don't think you should feel bad that you're sad about it.
No,
who wouldn't?
I do. I know. I feel sad, and then it's like, oh my. Then you open up the paper, and it's like, oh my God, Marsha, get a grip. Like there's so many, but it's like I do feel.
But some of it, that text that I sent you, where I said, if you were a furniture maker and you had made some kind of woodworking project, and it got destroyed, or fixed up a car and it got destroyed, or insert any sort of mostly male art form, craft, hobby. People would understand. Why is it called? Why would it be? Oh, it's just knitting? Because it's a women's art form. I really truly believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know why. Why is knitting considered craft, but painting a painting is considered art?
That's right. Yeah, if you had painted a painting and someone had broken into your house and sliced it up, you would have an insurance claim. Maybe not your painting, but I was like,
yeah,
it's a piece of art that you created that got destroyed. It's not just knitting, right? Yeah. So I do think some of it is cultural sort of devaluing of art forms that women create. That's part of it. And we've internalized that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, yeah, we're women. We think, oh, well, we don't feel that way, but we live in this world that devalues what we do. And so of course we've internalized some of that devaluing. So yeah, I mean, be sad if you need to. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a sad thing that happened. And it'll take you a while to get back to wanting to do, to wanting to do things, but you'll get there. A chicken would be, a brightly colored chicken would be fun.
Might do the trick.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to have technical problems here pretty quickly because my ear pods are failing. Only one is working.
Oh, okay.
And I realized because I've got this damn new phone, my ones with the cable won't plug in.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to talk fast.
So we're actually to the end. Just mentioned that the summer spin-in that started on May 27th is still going on all the way through September 2nd. And in the middle of the summer spin-in, it coincides with the Tour de Fleece, which is June 29th through July 21st, where people spin every day during the Tour de France. So if you're participating in the Tour de Fleece, that's going to be something that a lot of us are also doing. I haven't really thought about it. It's been a while since I've made sure I spun every day during the Tour de Fleece, but I think I'm going to try to do that this year. Either spin or card or something with, something spinning related every day, as opposed to just, summer spinning, I have all summer. I can skip a few days.
Yeah.
So some concentrated effort.
Okay.
So those are our events at this moment. If you participated in the Out of Hibernation Along, you might have won a prize. We announced winners in the last episode. So if you won a prize, get in touch. 2use@2usefiberadventures.com. 2use@2usefiberadventures.com is our email, or contact me on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects. And you'll have to go listen to the last episode to see if you won. We announced winners in episode 227. And I haven't heard from anybody yet.
Oh, everybody listen.
We have 2 winners out there. You don't even know who you are. Maybe they didn't like the prize.
Yeah, really. All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usefiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2 U's
doing our part for World Fleece.